Good morning. Welcome to the Divine Now. Before I start, I'd just like to ask you to subscribe if you like this channel. Also, hit the like button. And if you can, please share a comment. This morning, I'd like to share a couple thoughts about the question, How are you? Which is a common phrase when we greet people that we are seeing, we haven't seen in a while, or if we are connecting with a friend or someone gives us a call, and the first thing we say is "How are you?" And it's a common phrase, and I think oftentimes it's a very nice platitude. It's people aren't really asking "How are you?" deeply. It's a surface question. How you doing? And most of us will say, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm great." But rarely will someone actually tell you the truth. I recently watched a movie, and there's a scene where a guy's at the bar, um, and he's got some things on his mind. And a friend walks into the bar, and she sits down next to him, and she says, "Oh, you look so sad. What's going on?" He says, "No, I'm fine. I'm just sitting here, enjoying a drink." And she says, "No, no. What's really wrong? Tell me what's wrong. You look so sad." So he delays for a second, and pondering whether or not he really wants to tell this person what's really taking place in his life. So he begins to share, and it's a pretty deep thing from his past that he's been facing recently. And as he's unfolding and telling the story, she is getting more and more uncomfortable and distancing herself emotionally. And you can kind of see this in the scene. And finally, she says, I'm sorry. I don't think I'm the person you should be telling this to. I want to go ahead and go." And she ends up leaving the scene, leaving him alone at the bar. Here it is. She posed the question, "How are you?" He said, "I'm fine." She didn't believe him. She probed a little bit deeper, and he reluctantly opened up the door to his heart, got vulnerable, shared his stuff, and she walked away. I think that's one of the reasons why so many people don't express their truth, because they are afraid that if they tell their truth, people will walk away. It's estimated that 36% of Americans are chronically lonely. Um, we're not talking a little lonely, we're talking chronically lonely, like painful loneliness. It's been also documented that people who are lonely um, tend to live shorter lives, which sort of speaks to the fact that we, as humans, we need one another. We need connection. We need to come together as humans. We thrive on connection. But yet 36% of us are chronically lonely. And the rest of us have moments, or those who aren't chronically lonely have moments of loneliness. That can be pretty significant. What's happening in a society as wealthy as ours, as rich as ours? And not that we have a multitude of challenges, but what is it about our our society with Facebook and Instagram and all these different venues of communication? Why is it that over one-fourth of us, one out of every four, if not more, are chronically lonely? I mean, think about it. If you walk into the average restaurant, let's say there's 50 people that are being served at any given moment, a good chunk of those people are really lonely. They're sitting at the table, they're having dinner, they're having conversation, but a good chunk of those people, statistically, are chronically lonely. You go into the average church, you say a church of 30,000 people, go visit the average church. Let's say you go to, well, not the average church, but let's say you go to a big giant, like TD Jakes church, right? Thousands of people, 30,000 people. Think about that. One-fourth, if not more, of those people are chronically lonely, and the rest are dealing with loneliness on some level. What is it about our society that renders people so lonely and so disconnected, but yet on the surface it seems we're so well connected? There are probably a multitude of reasons that we can look at scientifically and socially to figure that question out. But I think one of the things that that keeps us at a distance from one another is fear, fear of vulnerability, fear of rejection, um, fear of the unknown. But we also live in a society that's deeply competitive. From the time we're in school, we're taught to compete against the other person, um, whether it's for grades or whether it's in sports. And we live in this us them kind of way of living. When McDonald's is competing against Wendy's, and Wendy's is competing against McDonald's. They don't really help each other succeed, even though that they know they need each other to exist. Think about it. If all we had were McDonald's on every corner in the nation, no Wendy's, no Popeyes, eventually people would get tired of McDonald's. They'd stop going after a while because, hey, you can only eat but so many Big Macs in a given year, right? So it's actually like we need our competition. We need diversity. Without diversity, other businesses don't succeed. So it's actually our diversity is actually a gift. And what if we had a society where people actually collaborated towards each other's success as opposed to having this I gotta win, you gotta lose kind of mindset? I think that's one of the reasons that we're disconnected as a society. Democrats fighting Republicans, and our nation is in turmoil when we can really find a way to work together, to find that middle place where we work together as opposed to working against each other. Loneliness, disconnection, us them mindset, I think is one of the things that creates this feeling of loneliness. Also, we live in a society that says if you don't act a certain way, think a certain way, live a certain way, if you're not living in my box, then you can't be a part of me. So many of us just fake that we're living in the box. We agree with people even when inwardly we disagree. People sit around the bar or sit around the Thanksgiving table talking about politics and social events, and they're going back and forth. And sometimes you have a heated argument, but then there are sometimes people just sit back silently and don't even say a word because what they have inside of them might go against the grain of what everyone is talking about. So they keep their inner thoughts to themselves, creating that feeling of loneliness and disconnection. I think loneliness comes in many different forms, and there are many reasons as to why we're lonely. I teach a conflict resolution class, and one of the things I talk about is relationship building, and I talk about the importance of first relating with oneself. And one day in class, I asked this question. I said, how often do any of you spend time alone with yourself? Where you actually just intentionally spend time alone? And one person in class said, I never spend time alone. And I said, well, why is that? And she says, because I'm afraid of the thoughts that come up when I'm quiet. And I said, well, what thoughts are those? And she says, I have thoughts that I'm unworthy. I'm not worthy of love. And silence just gripped the room. And I asked her, I said, have you ever voiced that before? She says, no, I never have. That feeling of unworthiness was deep inside of her. And so she keeps herself busy to not hear that pain of disconnection inside of her. I think one reason why we're lonely is we have these thoughts in the basement parts of ourselves that we don't know how to deal with, and we don't know where to take them. We don't have safe places to be ourselves, to be vulnerable, to take off the mask, to take off our Superman cape, our Superwoman cape, to allow ourselves to be weak and vulnerable, and to allow ourselves to say, I don't know, I don't like this feeling, I hurt, I'm scared. I should be here, but I'm here, and I don't know how to express my inner sadness. Who do I go to with this? Who do I take my pain to? Who do I take my questions to? Who will listen to me? And I believe these are some of the reasons why we're chronically lonely. I want to find ways to bridge the gap between loneliness and connectedness. And one of the reasons that I share these YouTube videos is to sort of have conversation, to have these thoughts put out there in the atmosphere for us to sort of ponder these things, to figure out ways whether we could collectively or individually find ways to build connection, to build bridges, to to heal the loneliness, to allow everyone to be seen and heard, so that they can know that their voice matters, their feelings matter, they matter, their lives are important. How are you is a serious question if we take the question seriously. If we really want an answer, how are you doing? And to sort of slow down and take time to listen without judgment, without criticism, without having to butt in or add our advice or add our opinion, but just simply being a voice, an empathetic heart. I want to propose that the next time you ask someone how they are doing, really mean it and really be willing to take time to listen and connect. Love you too, son. To listen and connect. Listen and connect. I hope this is a little longer video than usual, but I hope this has spoken something to you today. If you're one of the ones that feels chronically alone, I want you to know that you're not alone. I think I'm the 1/4 that feels that at times. And I'm okay admitting that now. I used to not be. But I'm okay. So I feel like if I can admit it to the world, then maybe others can admit it. And maybe we can start stitching our hearts together and letting each other know that you matter, your voice matters, your story matters, you're important. Peace to you. Namaste.